What else are the functions of the thalamus? Because that only deals with the spine. What about the hippocampus and the cerebral cortex?
The hippocampus sends information that deals with motor skills. The thalamus receives this information and sends it out to the other parts of the body.
Wow, that is a very important part of the brain. So now, what about the cerebral cortex can you tell me about, Jared?
Well, the thalamus sends signals to the cerebral cortex. There, the cerebral cortex regulates sleep and wakefulness. Thalamic nuclei have strong reciprocal connections with the cerebral cortex, following what are called thalamo-cortical-thalamic circuits. These are believed to be involved with consciousness. That is why the thalamus controls your wakefulness, because the thalamus is connected with the cerebral cortex, making these connections. Also, the signals are sent to the cerebral cortex, but then those signals are sent back and forth, processing the information. But do you know about neurotransmitters?
Yes, I can. Well, I know that there are two neurotransmitters related with the thalamus. One of them is GABA, or gamma-aminobutyric acid, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter that contributes to motor control, vision, and other cortical functions. The second is glutamate, which is a major excitatory neurotransmitter that is associated with learning and memory.
Oh, that makes sense. The GABA neurotransmitter makes sense because of how the thalamus takes in the sensory information. Also, the thalamus is connected to the hippocampus, which deals with memory, so that is why glutamate makes sense.
Well, we cannot also forget these more slowly acting neurotransmitters, norepinephrine, serotonin, and histamine control the state of activity of thalamic neurons.
Well, let's talk about cool facts. These cool and interesting parts of the thalamus should inform you about the other problems that come up from the thalamus. The first is cerebrovascular accident, or stroke, that can lead to thalamic syndrome, which involves a one-sided burning or aching sensation often accompanied by mood swings. Bilateral ischemia of the area supplied by the paramedian artery can cause serious problems including akinetic mutism. This means no blood gets to the thalamus. Then the patient will be restricted so he or she cannot speak or move anymore because of this little piece in the brain.
I also heard that fatal familial insomnia is a hereditary disease in which degeneration of the thalamus occurs, causing the patient to gradually lose his ability to sleep. This progression to a state of total insomnia leads to death. In contrast, damage to the thalamus can result in a coma, which is totally bad. Well, let's recap about the thalamus. Yeah, that means it is situated between the cerebral cortex and the midbrain, which allows the thalamus to send out information quickly.
Well, the last part about anatomy is that the thalamus is walnut-shaped and is about 5.7 centimeters long, which is about the width of an iPhone 5S.
Other important parts of the thalamus is that the thalamus is connected to the spinal cord, the hippocampus, and lastly the cerebral cortex.
And from these connections, the thalamus functions as a relay station, sending information to other parts of the body through sensory signals.
Yeah, it definitely does, Jared, because the thalamus relays information from the spinal cord to other parts of the brain about pain, temperature, and itching. And the thalamus relays information from the hippocampus that plays the role of monitoring motor skills. And lastly, the thalamus sends information to the cerebral cortex, where it regulates sleep, but the information goes to the cerebral cortex and back to the thalamus.
Well, what about the neurotransmitters for the thalamus?
Glutamate and GABA are proposed to form the neurotransmitter by which the networks of the thalamus process synaptic information.
Oh, right, and the more slowly acting neurotransmitters, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, serotonin, and histamine, control the state of activity of thalamic and cortical neurons.
Wow, we learned so much from talking with each other, Jared. If a class full of AP biology students listen to this conversation, then they should have learned a lot from this video. If not, they should have a handout that
Created using Powtoon.